Thank you very much. I appreciate everything that got translated for me. And of course, agree thoroughly and completely. I would argue that Croatia...
Zahvaljujem svima koji su prevodili za mene i potpuno se slažem sa svime.
I would argue that Croatia faces perhaps its most significant challenge since your independence.
Smatram da pred Hrvatskom predstoji najveći izazov od osnutka demokratske Hrvatske.
As you probably know, I came here at the invitation of these handsome gentlemen here, and when I was informed about what had happened to your Croatian journalist, Karolina.
Došla sam na poziv ovih skornjih muškaraca ovdje i kad sam saznala što se dogodilo o vašoj novinarki Karolini,
who had attempted to inform you about some of the research relative to your children's sexual education.
koja vas je pokušala obavijestiti o znanstvenim istraživanjima relevantnim za seksualni odgoj vaše djece.
In order to do that, she screened broadcast segments of a proper documentary that was produced originally by a British filmmaker, Tim Tate.
Da bi to napravila, ona je prikazivala dijelove iz dokumentarnog filma snimljenog u Velikoj Britaniji od pravog snimatelja Tima Tatea.
Tim Tate, who I was very grateful, was with us just until recently. He had to go back to England, poor darling, to that nasty weather, and I was left to have to be in this beautiful place, yeah.
Žao mi je, Tim Tate nije mogao ostati s nama, morao se vratiti u Englesku, jadnik gdje pati tamo u njihovoj klimi, a ja sam mogla ostati ovdje i uživati u vašoj prekrasnoj klimi.
But he was an Amnesty Award winner for films. He was a UNESCO Award winner. There you are too. Hi, nice to see you. Okay, and your brother. Hi, everybody. Hello. There's a whole, yes. Wonderful opportunity. You're great artists here in Croatia. Anyway, getting back to the business at hand.
Tim Tate je dobitnik nagrada od Amnestija i od UNESCO.
And what Karolina did was simply to try to bring some critical information about your sex education. Well, it's not yours, actually. The state's sex education that would be forced upon Croatian children.
I ono što je Karolina pokušala napraviti jest kritički prikazati program iz Sjedinjenih Američkih Država za seksualni odgoj koji žele namesti vašoj djeci.
And I emphasize it's not your sex education because as I have been in Croatia, I have seen and heard from the Croatian people, and they do not want this abusive material to be in their schools.
Želim naglasiti, to nije vaš program, jer ja sam srela i upoznala Hrvate i vidjela sam da oni to ne žele da se provodi ovakav nastavni program u vašim školama.
It comes to you as though it was science. It is not science, and I will attempt now to discuss some of that information.
Vama se to prikazuje kao da je znanost, ali to nije znanost i ja ću vam sada pokušati to objasniti.
So, the Kinsey Institute in Indiana, at Indiana University, recently released a book that they entitled Kinsey, the Man Who Has Changed the World.
Kinsey institut koji se nalazi u Indijani, na sveučilištu Indijani, je nedavno objavio knjigu naslovljenu Kinsey, čovjek koji je promijenio svijet.
I would argue we can say that, but we would have to say Kinsey, the pedophile who changed the world.
Ja bih rekla da možemo to reći, ali da bi morali dodati Kinsey, pedofil koji je promijenio svijet.
1948, Kinsey report hit the world, as they say, by storm.
1948. godine Kinseyjev izvještaj je objavljen u svijetu.
And I will argue, and I know, I can show you that in effect this was a sexual psychopath and he sabotaged our law, our children, and our families through a form of cultural contagion.
Ja vam mogu tvrditi da je on seksualni psihopat koji je kontaminirao našu obitelj, kulturu i kulturno i zakon.
Sorry, keep it on the slide till you finish. Yes, okay. Sorry. Okay. Kinsey is called the father of the sexual revolution. He was, and this is documented, not by me, but by his own people. He was an impotent.
Kinsey je prozvan otac seksualne revolucije. Ovo je dokumentirano, znači njegovi ljudi su to zapisali. On je bio impotentan.
Sadomasochistic, that's S&M.
Sadomasochist.
Yeah. By homosexual, there's debate which one. I don't think it matters too much.
Bi homoseksualac, postoji debata koji je, ali mislim da ne smatram da je to važno.
Pornography and masturbation addict.
Ovisnik o pornografiji i masturbaciji.
And a pederast, that's basically male to boy, psychopath.
I psihopat sa pedofilskim tendencijama.
Now, definition that we use in terms of psychopathology is a person who uses sex and violence without conscience, violating social norms without guilt or remorse. That is the scientific definition.
Znači, znanstvena definicija jest osoba koja koristi seks i nasilje bez savjesti, odnosno koja krši socijalna pravila bez osjećaja grižnje savjesti ili kajanja.
That's our citation. Please, you can go to C-SPAN for a 2-hour lecture on all this, but this will be very short. I just delivered that lecture at the university and at the law school, so it's available to you.
Molim vas, obratite se ovoj mrežnoj stranici gdje ćete naći dvosatno predavanje o ovoj temi koje sam nedavno održala na njihovom sveučilištu.
Now, we are told to break the arm of the wicked and evil man and call him to account for his wickedness. It should not be found out. We have many wicked men.
Pozvani smo slomiti ruku zlih ljudi i prozvati ih na odgovornost zbog njihova zlodjela koja inače ne bi bila otkrivena.
This is Kinsey on the left, Time magazine.
S lijeve strane je Kinsey na naslovnici Time časopisa.
According to Human Events, that's an American publication, Kinsey's reports were the most harmful American books of the 19th and 20th centuries.
Prema Human Events, jednom američkom publikaciji, Kinseyjeva izvješća su najštetnije američke knjige 19. i 20. stoljeća.
Laura Linney, who played the role of Mrs. Kinsey in the film Kinsey, where Liam Neeson played Kinsey, wrote, said, everyone's sex education in the past 50 years came right from the Kinsey Institute. He changed our culture completely.
Laura Linney, koja je glumila ulogu gospođe Kinsey u filmu o Kinsey, u kojemu je Kinsey glumio Liam Neeson, je rekla da svačija seksualna edukacija u proteklih 50 godina je došla iz Kinseyjevog instituta i da je Kinsey u potpunosti promijenio njihovu kulturu.
1989, the National Research Council said, Our sex knowledge divides into the biblical pre-Kinsey and, well, they didn't say anti-biblical, I said anti-biblical, let's be accurate here, post-Kinsey eras.
Nacionalno povjerenstvo za istraživanja 1989. godine je reklo da naše seksualno znanje se dijeli na prekinzeno, biblično i doktorica Reisman je dodala i protu-biblično postkinzijevo razdoblje.
Citation. Post-Kinsey, we dealt with the libel of our World War II generation. This is Tom Brokaw. He says, faith in God was part of the generation, fidelity, responsibility, a commitment to honesty. It is how they were raised. Our World War II generation.
Znači, Tom Brokaw govori o generaciji Drugog svjetskog rata, da vjera u Boga je bio dio njihove generacije, vjernost, osjećaj odgovornosti i zalaganje za iskrenost, da je to način na koji su odgojeni.
That is really very much like what I see in Croatia now, isn't it?
To je ono što ja vidim danas u Hrvatskoj, zar ne?
So, no one during World War II could talk to Kinsey during the war.
Znači, nitko tijekom Drugog svjetskog rata nije smio govoriti s Kinzijem.
Rockefeller Foundation marketed Kinsey's statistical lies that World War II heroes were wanton sex hypocrites.
Rockefeller je reklamirao Kinzijeve statističke laži, a to jest da su junaci Drugog svjetskog rata seksualni hipokriti.
You saw him everywhere, but you didn't really see his World War II, we call it a pimp, I don't know what you call it here, sex partner and so forth. This little fellow down there in the brown.
Njega ste vidjeli svugdje, ali niste vidjeli njegovog makroa, ovog prikazanog tu njegovog seksualnog partnera.
So, in the meantime, following Kinsey, future filmmakers, journalists, writers, millions would trust him, and our tough sex laws would be now based on fantasy and not on what is a real sexual nature.
Budući snimatelji filmova, pisci, milijuni su imali povjerenje u Kinziju i smatrali da njihove stroga pravila, zakoni vezano uz seksualnosti su utemeljeni na fantaziju, a ne na pravu prirodu spolnosti.
He traveled the world. Portugal, Canada, Europe, United Kingdom, of course the United States. And here he is at the University of Copenhagen with everyone worshipfully writing down his every word.
Proputovao je cijeli svijet, Portugal, Kanadu, Europu, Veliku Britaniju, ovdje je prikazano u Kopenhagenu gdje su svi zapisivali svaku njegovu riječ.
And I don't know if any of you are familiar with a guy named Donahue. Anybody here ever see him?
Je li tko upoznat sa tipom Donahue?
He's a very famous, very liberal host, television host in the United States. In 1990, he said, Donahue, we based an entire generation of sexologists on Kinsey, and Kinsey was a dirty old man.
Donahue je bio voditelj, to liberalni voditelj jedne televizijske emisije u Americi i rekao je da smo čitave generacije seksologa odgajali na Kinzija, a da je Kinzi u stvari prljavi starac.
And then he added very quickly, and he wasn't. The guy was married once, a nuclear family kind of guy.
I onda je dodao, ali nije, on je čak bio oženjen jedan put i to imao nuklearnu obitelj, obiteljski tip.
And this is Kinsey's photographer, Clarence Tripp, who is in the film, of course, that Carolina has shown here and got everybody quite upset because Tripp said, Kinsey listened to pedophiles who were very careful. They used stopwatches, knew how to record their thing.
Prikazana je slika Kinseyevog fotografa, Trippa, koji je rekao da je Kinsey slušao pedofile koji su bili vrlo oprezni, koristili su štoperice i znali su kako snimiti to što su radili.
He was one of Kinsey's close compadres. And Donahue asked, I'm sorry, you want to say that?
On je bio jedan od bliskih suradnika Kinseya.
Comrade.
Drug.
Yeah. Donahue said, were they in prison at the time? And Tripp replied, oh, certainly not. But they were trained observers of these children that the pedophiles were molesting.
Donahue onda postavio pitanje jesu li oni bili u zatvoru u to vrijeme i Tripp je odgovorio ne, oni su bili educirani promatrači djece koji su bila tada seksualno zlostavljana od tih pedofila.
Now, are you clear that Sasha Stuhlhofer, yes, that Sasha, excuse me, Stuhlhofer, that Sasha Stuhlhofer has been bragging that he was trained at what institute? Everybody know that? The Kinsey Institute, yes?
Jeste li upoznati s činjenicom da je Saša Stuhlhofer hvali se time što je studirao na, odnosno radio tamo na Kinsey institutu?
And he then will transmit his learning to your children.
I on će sada prenijeti svoja saznanja vašoj djeci.
Everybody happy?
Jeste li sretni s time?
Okay, moving right along. Okay, now, what did Donahue have to look at on that television program when I was discussing this with him? He had to look at Table 34 from Kinsey's book, in which he says, these children were being tested for orgasms.
I što je Donahue trebao gledati dok se govorilo o ovome na emisiji? Pokazali su mu tablicu 34 iz Kinseyeve knjige gdje se proučavalo orgazm.
A 5-month-old who was recording his thing. Remember, that's what Tripp said, recording his thing. A 5-month-old having allegedly 3 orgasms.
Pokazali su kako dojenče od 5 mjeseci je može doživjelo 3 orgazma i to su oni snimali tu svoju stvar.
A 4-year-old, 26 orgasms.
4-godišnjak 26.
Oh, I pressed the wrong button. Come back. Okay. 20. Thank you. I know that they don't like it. The screen doesn't like this. I don't blame you. The screen. I don't think the children liked it either. Okay. Yeah. So 26 orgasms in 24 hours. Okay. Is that legal? Is that science?
Je li to legalno? Je li to znanost?
Who would do that to children?
Ko bi tako nešto činili djeci?
24 hours. That's a round-the-clock experiment.
To su,
isn't it?
Tijekom 24 sata non-stop eksperimentirali na djecu.
Okay. Table 33, multiple orgasms in these little babies. Number of orgasms, multiple orgasms. I won't go into this, but There's 182 children here. These were mostly all boys, but they were all boys actually.
U ovoj tablici prikazuju znači, još podataka o multiplim orgazmima koji su mali dječaci, njih 182 doživljavali.
Table 32, speed of pre-adolescent orgasm. Okay, 188 little boys.
U tablici 32 prikazana je brzina postizanja orgazma kod malodobne djece i to kod preko 100 djece.
317 little boys. A 2-month-old here is the youngest one, which Kinsey, called a population. There's a 2-month-old baby that he said he said he didn't have an orgasm. That's being objective, I think. It's supposed to be called objectivity.
Ovdje su prikazani podaci na 317 dječaka, najmlađa imala samo 2 mjeseca, gdje u ovom slučaju nisu uočili orgazam i pretpostavljam da je to objektivni podatak.
This is the Kinsey Institute, ladies and gentlemen. And they're going to train your children.
Ovo je Kinsey institut, gospodo, i oni će podučavati vašu djecu.
Dr. John Bancroft, Kinsey Institute director, said to Tim Tate, he said, all this crap about table 31 and 34, Kinsey demystified the subject of sexuality.
Dr. John Bancroft, direktor Kinsey instituta, je izjavio svo ovo sranje o tablici 31 i 34. Pa Kinsey je demistificirao temu seksualnosti.
Do you think he demystified?
Ili vi mislite da je on demistificirao?
Or did he lie for his own particular reasons?
Ili je lagao zbog svojih određenih razloga?
And here's table 30. 273 children. All of these are pre-adolescent children.
Ovdje vidimo u tablici 30 pokus je proveden na 273 malodobne djece.
I have the book with me. If anybody doesn't, the questions that I have his original book right here.
Imam knjigu sa sobom, ako netko ima bilo kakve pitanje ili sumnje, može pogledati knjigu.
Anybody remember Mengele?
I se ko sjeća Mengela?
Yeah. You see a similarity?
Ili vidite sličnosti?
Kinsey said, in 5 cases of young pre-adolescents, observations were continued over periods of months or years.
Kinsey je rekao da u 5 slučajeva malodobne djece istraživanja su provedena tijekom mjesecima i godinama.
He said this was a sexual orgasm, a sex climax. Remember, this man is a sadomasochist. He tortured himself. He apparently died of orchitis, having tortured his genital organs, Last time I spoke, there was a little girl in the front. It made me very nervous. So he was a sadomasochist who tortured himself. He climbed into a bathtub and tried to circumcise himself with a knife. This is insane.
Imajte na umu da ovaj čovjek sadomazohista i on sebe maltretirao i mučio da bi postigao razne ciljeve, da je navodno čak u kadi sebe pokušao obrezivati.
I could tell you some worse stuff too, but I won't right
Mogu vam reći i gore stvari, ali neću sada.
Okay. So he defined an orgasm as children who suffered excruciating pain, screamed when the penis was touched, and who fought away from what he called the partner. Would you call a man who is raping a child his partner?
On je definirao seksualni vrhunac kao kad dječaci dožive strašnu bol i viču ako ih se dotakne i koji se bore, odnosno bježe od partnera. Bili vi prozvali osobu koja ih muči partnera?
And your sex education curriculum comes from a Kinsey trained, quote, expert.
I program, znači, seksualnog odgoja Hrvatske dolazi od osobe koja je trenirana kao Kinseyjev stručnjak.
Sobbing, sometimes with an abundance of tears, especially among younger children, trembling, collapse, fainting.
Plakanje, ponekad popraćeno obiljem suza, pogotovo među mlađom djecom, drhtanje, padanje u nesvijest, ponekad i gubitak svijesti.
I'm told Mr. Stuhlhofer, yes, says there is no such thing as a natural sexual act. Well, that would make sense here, wouldn't it?
Gospodin Stuhlhofer je rekao da ne postoji prirodan seksualni čin. Ovdje to izgleda tako.
And he concluded that the children, quote, derive definite pleasure from the situation.
I Kinsey je zaključio da ta djeca definitivno uživaju u toj situaciji.
So, quickly, he called these 6 types of orgasm. And you can see that, I won't go into it, but we can, if we had more time, we could do that, but other people have things to say.
On je to prozvao kao 6 različitih vrsta orgazma, o kome bih mogla više govoriti, ali ćemo ići dalje.
Okay. Now, 1955, Rockefeller funded Kinsey's works and put those, what they call data, into the model penal code and changed American sex laws forever.
Rockefeller je sponzorirao model program na temelju Kinseyjevih podataka koje je dovelo do stvaranja novog liberalnijeg zakona o seksu.
Sex science would replace our law. It would legalize abortion. It would legalize no-fault divorce. It would legalize sodomy. It would legalize, quote, gay marriage. It would legalize pornography. And it would legalize and promote sex education.
Znači, ta nova, takozvana seksualna znanost bi zamijenila svakdašnji zakon i dovela do legalizacije pobačaja, rastave, sodomije, homoseksualnosti, pornografije i tako dalje.
And I won't go into this because we don't have a lot of time, but all our laws got changed. All our laws got either reduced or eliminated.
Neću ulaziti u detalje, ali uslijed toga svi naši zakoni su bili promijenjeni.
Now, when I did my research for the Department of Justice, we identified children in Playboy, Penthouse, and Hustler. I was threatened with a lawsuit in 1995 by Playboy. They sued me, and we won.
Kad sam radila svoje istraživanja, pronašla sam kako se koriste djeca u časopisima poput Playboya, Hustlera i drugi. Oni su pokrenuli tužbu protiv nas, ali mi smo pobijedili.
So, we had the research established Playboy as promoting child pornography and incest since 1954.
Istraživanje je pokazalo da Playboy je promovirao dječju pornografiju i incest od 1954.
The big news, said Playboy, is there's a lot more direct eroticism in a small child than most adults want to acknowledge.
Rekli su da ima puno više eroticizma u tijelu malog djeteta nego što većina odraslih žele to priznati.
And that was 1976.
1976.
Hefner said that he would be Kinsey's pamphleteer. He was a virgin in college, like most guys were in the 1950s.
Hefner je rekao da će on reklamirati Kinseya, bio je nevin kad je započeo college kao većina muškaraca 50. godina.
And in 1971, Playboy had 16 child images per issue, most of them sexualized. First cartoons.
1971. U Playboyu je bilo 16-17 slika gdje su prikazana djeca, bilo je i crteža
and then photographs,
i fotografija,
very carefully designed.
vrlo pažljivo prikazivana.
In the United States now, 50% of our pastors say they view pornography every week.
U Sjedinjenim Američkim Državama 50% njihovih pastorala kažu da gledaju pornografiju svaki tjedan.
Yeah.
To su u biti protestantski svećenici.
I won't go into all this because I'm it's taking too long, but there's a lot to talk about there. Sex education, Planned Parenthood, eroticized youth. The youth become victimizers.
Seksualna edukacija je dovela do toga da mladi su postali nasilnici.
They changed American youth from the 1940s to American youth today, and it's not been a good change. We have roughly 4,000 or 12,000, it depends on the data that you're looking at, but large numbers of children are sexually abusing children today.
Situacija se znatno promijenila. Danas imamo jako puno, između 4 i 12 tisuća djece koje, nažalost, seksualno zlostavljaju drugu djecu.
We have 4.5 million children abused students in 1 year.
Imamo 4,5 milijuna seksualno zlostavljenih studenata u jednoj godini.
These are pictures of just a few of the women teachers who have been convicted of child sexual abuse as teachers in their schools in the United States of America.
Ovo su fotografije, odnosno imena učiteljica koje su dokazano zlostavljale učenike u školama u Sjedinjenim Američkim Državama.
Well, we have much more men, but it's very important to see the changes in both women and children, and the fact that women and children are now molesting young kids. I won't go into this, but you should all get on my website and see the way in which this whole process took place.
Ima puno više muškaraca zlostavljača, ali je zanimljivo vidjeti kako sada i žene i, nažalost, djeca su se uključile u taj proces. Trebate pogledati moju mrežnu stranicu gdje puno više o tome piše.
These are some of the people who are training your children, really. This is from the Institute for Advanced Study of Human Sexuality, and they have been creating the sex education curricula for roughly 2 decades.
Ovo su ljudi koji sa Instituta za humanu seksualnost koji već 2 desetljeća kreiraju program seksualne edukacije.
This is faculty, staff, students, sexologists.
Znači ovo je osoblje tog instituta, seksolozi.
That was child pornography. And in 2001, at a sexuality conference in Dubrovnik, there is Mr. Stuhlhofer, Professor Stuhlhofer, lying down there on the bottom. Behind him is one of his co-authors, Theo Sanford, who is a self-confessed pedophile.
Ovo je slika skupine koji su se okupili 2001. godine u Dubrovniku. Ispred vidite gospodina Stuhlhofera koji leži na podu, a iza njega je njegov autor koji je dokazani, dokumentirani pedofil.
This is the co-authored book on sexuality and gender in post-communist Eastern Europe and Russia.
To je knjiga koju su oni napisali o seksualnosti i rodnosti u postkomunističnoj Europi.
Another person at that conference who helped organize it, Stuhlhofer arranged it, and he worked with this pedophile, and he also worked with Haberle. This is Erwin Haberle, who writes in Hustler magazine, a pornography magazine. And he says we need to legalize incest and we need to legalize the age of, lower it or eliminate, end the age of consent.
U slici se vidi i gospodin Haberle s kojima je Stuhlhofer surađivao. a koji piše za časopis Hustler o pornografiji i koji se zalaže za legalizaciju incesta i za snižavanje dobi za pristanak.
Thank you. This was supported by the Soros Foundation. Haberly is up in the top corner, right-hand side. And Sanford, the other pedophile, is behind Stuhlhofer.
Ovo podržava i Soros fondacija.
And here is Dr. Stuhlhofer on this television program. He apparently refused to appear on your program, right? Carolina? Carolina invited him to appear, to debate this, present his position. He refused. And the next day, he appeared on this program, this is Kinsey back there, and they include his wife, although he had his own bedroom upstairs, and that's where he brought young men. He did not use the bedroom downstairs with his wife.
Ovdje vidite gospodina Stuhlhofera na jednoj televizijskoj emisiji, a dan prije je odbio sudjelovati na Karolinoj emisiji. Ovdje prikazuju Kinsleya sa suprugom, a Kinsley je koristio spavaču sobu gore na katu gdje je vršio ta svoje istraživanja nad dječacima.
And when he was asked about the Nazi connection between Kinsey and a member of the Gestapo, who originally was part of Kinsey's research, who Kinsey corresponded with, Mr. Dr. Herr Dr. Stuhlhofer did say that there was never any Nazi connection. Of course there was. This is the connection.
I kad ga je pitao o vezi između Kinseyevog instituta i predsjednika Gestapa, on je rekao da nije bilo nikakve veze, ali bilo je.
Dr. Fritz von Baljuček, this is a picture of him from that Yorkshire television production that Carolina tried to bring to the Croatian public.
Ovo je slika doktora Fritz von Baljučeka iz one emisije iz Velike Britanije koje je Karolina pokušala prikazati na vašoj televiziji.
And Tim Tate documented that thoroughly. All of the German press reported the arrest of this man for a suspected sex murder of a little girl. He was convicted of massive child sex abuse.
Tim Tate je detaljno izvještao o tome u svojim člancima. Njemačke medije također se o tome izvještale kako je on bio osuđen za ubojstvo jedne djevojke koju se seksualno zlostavljao i za svoje brojne pedofilske pokuse.
And he had been corresponding with this Nazi.
Surađivao je sa tim nacistom.
And sending him books about child sexuality.
I slao mu knjigu o dječjoj seksualnosti.
And Dr. Stuhlhofer should have known that.
I dr. Stuhlhofer je trebao to znati.
Just as he should have known that his co-author was the editor on the Journal of Pedophilia.
Kao što je trebao znati da je njegov koautor glavni urednik časopisa o pedofiliji.
Which advocated for legalizing all sex with children.
Koji se zalagao za legalizaciju svih oblika seksa s djecom.
And there it is.
I evo ga.
So, we're talking about the hypersexualization of Croatian youth.
Govorimo o hiperseksualizaciji hrvatske mladosti.
Although the brain studies are very clear that these children's brains are not, correct, doctor? Are not in any way, shape, or form, yes, thank you, are not prepared, they're not developed enough at all to even begin to deal with human sexual activity and so forth. That's the reason they are what? Children.
Znanstvene istraživanja jasno pokazuju da dječji mozak jednostavno nije u stanju primiti neka saznanja, jer oni su dizajnirani da budu ono što jesu, a to su djeca.
Children. The teenage brain, and we're talking the teenage brain. The self-control center is responsible for risk-taking control, impulse, emotional, self-restraint, judgment. These developmental processes are not ready. They are not developed in young people. They are not developed until roughly age 21 to 25.
Čak i kod tineđera dio mozga koji je odgovoran za uzimanje rizika, za impulse, za emocije, za samokontrolu, za procjenjivanje, rasuđivanje, nije razvijen. Tek se razvija između 21. i 25. godine.
These are National Institute of Health scans, highly reputable, completely verifiable, and accepted within the scientific community.
Ovo su slike Nacionalnog instituta za zdravlje koje su reproducibilne i vrlo kvalitetne.
Not even in high school should young people be exposed to sexualized stimuli.
Čak niti u srednjoj školi mladi ljudi ne bi smjeli biti izloženi seksualnoj stimulaciji.
These are basically traumatic experiences for them, and they alter their neural systems.
To su traumatska iskustva za njih koji utječu na njihove neuralne sustave u mozgu.
So it's settled science. This would lower we call it grooming, lower sexual inhibitions, and indicate it's okay to have sex, and you are grooming those children for adult sexual abuse.
Znači ova vrsta znanosti koja snizuje seksualne inhibicije u biti ih priprema da budu izloženi seksualnom maltretiranju.
These are some of the images from American sex education that Dr. Stuhlhofer would have you emulate, copy.
Ovo su prizori iz američkog programa seksualne edukacije koje bi gospodin Stuhlhofer htjela da vi i ovdje primjenjujete i koristite.
Showing children how to masturbate, in case they couldn't figure that out. Telling little girls how to look at their body parts, engaging in fornication and so forth. Yeah, for ages 10 and up, actually younger too.
Koji prikazuju kako vi vodite ljubav i se samo zadovoljavati, pregledavati i tako dalje, namijenjeno je djeci od 10 godina nadalje.
BBC has a program for 7 to 9-year-olds, which is extremely explicit, it's a animated video.
BBC ima animirani video koji je vrlo eksplicitan, namijenjen djeci od 7 do 9 godina.
They also will have sex ed material for 5-year-olds, showing them masturbation, homosexual contact, and so forth, and orgasm.
Imaju čak i materijale za 5-godišnjake koji prikazuju i samozadovoljavanje i homoseksualnost ili slično.
Then they can go home and practice.
I onda mogu ići doma vježbati.
Or find somebody to practice with.
Ili naći nekoga s kime mogu vježbati.
And you can count on this if you move forward with your sex education program.
Možete računati na ovo ako budete nastavili sa ovim programom seksualne edukacije u Hrvatskoj.
This is the module that will be discussed shortly in the sex, gender equality and responsible sexual behavior. We just looked at those brains.
Ovo je program koji ćemo kasnije razmotriti, gdje se zagovara kritičko razmišljanje i razumijevanje različitosti.
Allegedly, this health, they call it health, education curriculum, was created here. It had nothing to do with parents or religious leaders or medical doctors.
Ovaj program zdravstvenog odgoja nije nikakve veze sa roditeljima, vjerskim vođama ili zdravstvenim djelatnicama, liječnicima.
To teach children diversity and critical thinking.
Da bi se učili djecu o različitostima i kritičkom razmišljanju.
Yet, Croatia still has the lowest rates in Europe for teen sex activity, seen in your abortion rates, seen in your sexually transmitted diseases, and seen in all other measures of sexual health. You have a good health model, as these children have learned so far, whereas you see United Kingdom is right up at the top, having had sex education for decades.
Hrvatska je među zemljama sa najnižim stopama pobačaja, spolno prenosivih bolesti i seksualne aktivnosti među mladima, dok u Velikoj Britaniji su stope jako visoke usprkos ovim seksualnim programima.
This is from the British Daily Mail, and they point out that Greece and Poland, strong Catholic cultures, have the lowest rates of sexually transmitted diseases and sex dysfunction.
Ovo je članak iz engleskih novina gdje su istakli da Poljska i Grčka, koje su katoličke zemlje, imaju vrlo niski stupanj bolesti.
Oh, we're going to skip my gypsy moth. If we had more time, I could love to tell you about the gypsy moth, but never mind. We'll just move right along. Okay, he said he found out that 100% of children are capable of orgasm if they're helped by an adult or an older person.
Inzi je rekao da 100% djece su sposobni postići orgazam ako im pomogne odrasla osoba.
That he interviewed over 4,000 women. No one's ever hurt by a rape.
Intervjuirao je preko 4,000 žena koje su tvrdile da im nije škodilo silovanje.
And that 10 to 37% of the male population is homosexual at some point in time.
I da barem 10 do 30% muške populacije je homoseksualno u nekom trenutku.
This is supposed to be science.
Ovo bi trebala biti znanost.
We now have 5,200 people in the Pentagon who have been caught downloading child pornography in the United States of America.
Preko 5,000 osoblja Pentagona su pronađeni kako skidaju dječju pornografiju sa interneta 2010. godine.
We had 58,200 non-family child kidnappings in 1999.
U 1999. godine došlo do otmice preko 58,000 djece od osobe koje nisu članovi obitelji.
Now, do you want to imitate that?
Je li vi želite to ponašati?
We had 64% of our forcible sodomy victims were boys under 12.
60% žrtava sodomije su bili dječaci ispod 12 godina.
67% of our sex abuse victims are under age 17.
67% žrtava seksualnog nasilja su mlađi od 17 godina.
Is that a program that you want in your schools?
Je li to program koji vi želite u vašim školama?
We won't go into this fellow. He's a coach who was caught recently. All right, now that's the Kinsey Institute for Research, Sex, Gender, and Reproduction at Indiana University. These are these pictures. They always try to put his poor wife in there, poor darling. And it says, and we're saying, that the Kinsey Institute still collects secret sex diaries. They cover up the evidence of their child sex atrocities.
Ova je slika Kinseyevog instituta za istraživanja o seksu, rodu i reprodukcije na Indiana sveučilištu. Prikazan je obično sa suprugom, jadnica. I ovdje vidimo da još uvijek skupljaju neke tajne dnevnike i pokušaju prikrivati svoje zločine koje su činili djeci.
They get millions of dollars in our state, federal, and private funding. They were the most harmful American books of the 19th and 20th centuries.
Dobivaju milijune dolara od raznih izvora i zaista su bili najgori, napisali najgore knjige 19. i 20. stoljeća.
So, I urge you to read, to learn, to maybe, I don't know, organize. And I thank you very much for the opportunity to bring this information to you.
Čitate, učite i da se organizirate. I zahvaljujem na pozivu.